So, if you pick up a typical cat, you usually have a window of like maybe 3 seconds before it squirms away, kicks you in the stomach, and runs off to stare at a blank wall.
Yeah, that is a pretty universal feline experience.
Right, but there is a specific breed of cat that when you picked up, instantly goes completely biologically limp in your arms. It just melts.
It really does. It's fascinating.
And today in this deep dive, we are exploring why that happens. But more importantly, we are looking at what that biological oddity tells us about the ultimate dividing line in the animal kingdom. I mean, the big question for you listening right now, are you a cat person or are you a dog person?
It is the great cultural debate, honestly. And what we are really unpacking today with the research we've gathered isn't just the animals themselves.
Oh, definitely not.
Right. Our mission today is to look at the fascinating psychology behind why we prefer one over the other, the distinct evolutionary paths that shape these two types of companionship, and, how modern living is completely blurring those historical lines.
Because I often wonder if the whole cat person versus dog person label is actually about the pets at all.
That's a great point.
Like, is it secretly just a mirror reflecting our own human personalities?
Yeah.
Feels like the ultimate psychological test, just with, a lot more fur and vet bills.
Yeah. We are definitely going to dive deep into that psychological mirror. We will examine the friction between human personality and the practical realities of pet ownership.
And we'll unpack that specific rule-breaking cat you mentioned at the start, the one that routinely triggers a total identity crisis for lifelong dog lovers.
Exactly. And as we go, we are going to break down the specific English vocabulary used in this debate, because the language we choose to describe these animals reveals a ton about our own social needs.
So let's start with the psychology and the history. Where do the classic traits of these two camps actually come from? Because a dog's neediness or a cat's aloofness isn't just a random personality quirk, is it?
Not at all. I mean, it is hardwired survival mechanics. If we look at what makes a classic dog person, we usually see a cluster of specific lifestyle preferences.
Like what kind of preferences?
Well, these people typically lean toward extroversion. They gravitate toward outdoor activities, and they derive a lot of satisfaction from highly visible physical interaction.
Right. The whole throwing the ball at the park vibe.
Exactly. And dogs evolved from wolves alongside early humans as working animals. We actively bred them to guard our camps, to pull sleds, to hunt cooperatively in packs.
So from the very beginning of the relationship, dogs were essentially our prehistoric coworkers. They were literally bred to look to us for direction.
That is the crucial mechanism right there. Because of that shared evolutionary history of pack hunting and cooperative labor, dogs are biologically programmed for partnership. Their brains actually reward them for working with you. This is why a dog shows such obvious full-body excitement when you walk through the door.
It totally explains why they seek constant attention and why they require daily outdoor stimulation. I mean, they are physically built for movement and cooperation.
Exactly. It completely explains the mechanism behind that classic quote, "My dog is my best friend."
It's a very active, visible type of love. You throw the ball, they bring it back, you praise them. It's like a continuous transaction of joy.
That's a great way to put it.
But then we look at the other side of the aisle, the cat people, and here the dynamic completely shifts.
Drastically. Cat people often appreciate independence. They value quiet companionship over, boisterous interaction.
Right.
And they tend to prefer low-maintenance routines. And again, to understand why cats fit this, we have to look at how they entered human society.
Right, because it was very different from dogs.
Completely different. Historically, cats were solitary hunters. They didn't operate in packs. When humans experienced the agricultural revolution and started storing massive amounts of grain, well, that grain attracted mice.
Okay, I have to jump in here because I'm struggling to understand the concept of cats domesticating themselves, which is something you hear a lot.
It's a common phrase, yeah.
If they were solitary, territorial hunters, why wouldn't they just eat the mice and go back to the wild? Why stay with us?
Because staying was calorically efficient.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, the human settlements provided a never-ending buffet of rodents. We didn't capture cats and train them to do a job the way we did with wolves. We just mutually coexisted because their natural hunting behavior benefited our grain storage.
So for thousands of years, cats lived adjacent to humans, not necessarily with humans.
Precisely. They maintained their independence.
Yeah, we were basically just roommates who passed each other in the hallway.
Pretty much. And that explains why a typical cat doesn't need a daily walk. It's why they enjoy their personal space and why they show affection in much more subtle, controlled ways.
Which is the mechanism behind the classic cat owner quote, "My cat chooses when to love me."
Exactly.
Which is such a brilliant distinction. It's the difference between guaranteed, unconditional enthusiasm and, like, a love that feels like you really had to earn it.
Yeah, it's a very different emotional reward. And this brings up that psychological study we were looking at earlier. The idea that this isn't just anecdotal. Our preferences are statistically linked to our core personalities.
Wait, really? The numbers actually back that up.
Yes, multiple psychological studies suggest a strong correlation. People who strongly identify as cat people tend to score significantly higher in introversion and openness to experience.
Interesting. And the dog people.
Dog people often score higher in extroversion and agreeableness. Think about an introvert whose social battery drains quickly. A dog's constant demand for attention can actually feel really overwhelming.
Oh, totally. It's just too much input.
Right. But a cat's natural tendency to respect boundaries and operate independently, that is deeply comforting to an introverted nervous system.
Okay, I have to push back on this binary, though. Because if we look at modern demographics, especially in dense urban cities, cats are becoming increasingly popular simply due to apartment living.
That's very true.
Right. Like, you don't have a backyard, you work 12-hour days, commuting is a nightmare. Having a dog is just a logistical nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
So, is the modern cat person identity actually about introversion? Or is it just a practical adaptation to your zip code?
That is the exact friction point of modern pet ownership. Necessity often overrides natural preference.
So you could have the personality of a dog person, but the living space of a cat person.
Exactly. You might have the highly extroverted, active personality of a classic dog person, but your 500 square foot apartment dictates that you adopt a cat.
So if geography and apartment sizes are forcing extroverts to adopt cats, it makes total sense why people would be desperate for an animal that bridges the gap.
A cat that acts like a dog.
Yes. Which brings us back to that weird limp cat we talked about at the very beginning.
Enter the Ragdoll.
The ultimate rule breaker.
The Ragdoll breed completely disrupts the traditional cat versus dog binary. Visually, they are just stunning. I mean, they are one of the most famous cat breeds in the world.
They've got those striking blue eyes, right?
Yes, renowned for their large size, the big blue eyes, and incredibly silky, almost rabbit-like fur. But, their physical appearance is really secondary to their behavioral mechanics.
How so?
Well, they are exceptionally gentle, easygoing, and intensely people-oriented.
Which is completely counterintuitive to the solitary hunter history we just outlined. So what is the biological reason behind this? Is it like a random genetic mutation?
It's actually the result of highly selective breeding that began in California in the 1960s. Breeders specifically selected for docility.
Wow, really?
Yeah, effectively suppressing the normal feline fight-or-flight response. And the name Ragdoll comes directly from this biological quirk.
Right, because of the melting thing.
Exactly. When you pick them up, they don't tense up to escape. They have a distinct physical tendency to go completely limp and relax. Owners literally describe it as the cat melting into their arms.
They just surrender to the affection. It's wild. Because unlike a typical cat that tolerates a hug as a temporary inconvenience, the Ragdoll actively leans into it.
They crave it. And their behavior extends way beyond just being held. They are famous for following their owners from room to room, greeting people at the front door, and even playing fetch.
Fetch for a cat.
Yes. This is why feline experts and owners consistently describe their behavior as dog-like.
They really are the plug-in hybrid vehicle of the pet world. You get the apartment-friendly, no daily walk, compact chassis of a cat, but you get the highly interactive, follow you around, greet you at the door engine of a dog.
It bridges the gap perfectly for that extroverted apartment dweller.
But imagine the identity crisis. Imagine being a strict, lifelong dog person. You take the personality tests, you identify as an extrovert, you believe dogs are the only true companions.
So I've seen it happen.
Right. Then you go to a friend's apartment, you meet a Ragdoll, it looks up at you with those big blue eyes, melts into your arms, follows you to the kitchen, and suddenly your brain completely short-circuits. Everything you thought you knew about your pet identity is just wrong.
It happens constantly. It proves that our categories aren't nearly as rigid as we like to pretend.
Yeah.
However, before anyone listening rushes out to get one of these hybrid wonders, we have to look at the mechanics of care.
Right. Because it is never just about what the pet gives you.
Exactly. It's about what you owe the pet, the reality of responsible ownership.
which is a huge part of this deep dive.
Choosing a pet requires brutal honesty about your lifestyle. Do you actually have time for daily outdoor walks in the freezing rain? Do you prefer quiet evenings at home, or are you always traveling for work?
It's a massive shift in your daily routine.
It is. Responsible pet ownership means acknowledging that you are making a decade-plus commitment. It involves significant financial responsibility and a massive investment of both time and emotional bandwidth.
You aren't just acquiring a cute roommate. You are taking on a dependent.
Precisely.
And I imagine this creates an incredible paradox when it comes to the ragdoll. Because if a traditional cat person, someone who specifically wants an independent, solitary animal that they can just leave alone for a weekend, gets a ragdoll thinking, oh, it's a cat, it'll be fine, aren't they going to be completely blindsided?
They will be entirely overwhelmed. This is the danger of assuming all cats operate on the same software.
Right.
Because of their deep need for emotional interaction, a ragdoll left alone will actually become depressed. They need your lap, they need you to talk to them. You cannot just leave a gravity feeder full of kibble and disappear for 3 days.
Wow. So they secretly require the emotional commitment level of a dog.
Exactly. And on top of the emotional tax, there is a literal time tax. That beautiful, silky fur requires rigorous, regular grooming to prevent painful matting.
Hidden costs.
Yes. Furthermore, because we selectively bred out their fight-or-flight response to make them docile, they lack basic street smarts.
Oh, that makes sense.
They will not defend themselves against a stray dog or a coyote. Therefore, they are strictly recommended for indoor living only.
Wait. If we bred out their survival instincts just so they would cuddle better, that makes them completely defenseless in the real world.
That is the sobering reality of selective breeding. We engineered them for our comfort, which means we are entirely responsible for their safety.
Which highlights exactly why understanding the precise language around pet ownership is so critical. If you just tell a shelter, hey, I want a cat, you might end up with a high-needs emotional sponge when you actually wanted a solitary mouser.
That miscommunication happens all the time.
So to make sure you are fully equipped to navigate these choices, let's unpack the English vocabulary we've been circling around today. Let's really look at the concepts behind these words.
I think that's essential. The words we use aren't just labels, they represent massive lifestyle implications. Let's start with the cultural identifiers we've discussed, cat person and dog person. On the surface, a cat person is simply someone who prefers cats, and a dog person prefers dogs. But in context, it's used to signal an entire personality type. You might say, she's definitely a cat person, she loves her quiet weekends.
Ah, I see.
And you'd contrast her by saying, he's more of a dog person, always out hiking.
Right, it's shorthand for an entire vibe. It's an identity marker.
Exactly. Moving to the behavioral terms, we talked a lot about the ragdoll being affectionate. This means actively showing warmth and love.
It's a very active word.
Yes, it's not passive. An affectionate animal seeks out physical connection. You could say ragdolls are very affectionate cats.
It's the exact opposite of aloof.
Yes. And the direct counterpoint to that is independent. This means being able to act on your own, not requiring constant direction, validation, or attention.
Right.
In our evolutionary context, you'd say cats are usually more independent than dogs. They are self-starters.
They don't need you to throw the ball to have a good time. Now, regardless of whether an animal is affectionate or independent, we acquire them for the same fundamental reason, to be a companion.
A critical word. A companion is an animal that provides company. It implies partnership and shared time rather than just ownership. For example, pets are wonderful companions.
I really like that word because it elevates the animal from a piece of property to an actual participant in your life.
It does. Now, to understand how that companion operates, we use the word temperament.
Temperament, okay.
Temperament refers to the natural, hardwired personality or disposition of an animal.
Yeah.
It's not a mood they wake up in. It's their genetic baseline.
Got it.
So you could say ragdolls have a calm temperament.
It's the operating system they come pre-installed with. Like, you can't train a ragdoll to be an aggressive guard dog, just like you can't train a husky to be a lazy couch potato.
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it. And dealing with that operating system brings us to the human side of the equation commitment.
That's a big one.
It means a long-term responsibility or obligation. It's the vow you take when you bring them home. Owning a pet requires commitment.
It really is the weightiest word on the list. It's a 15-year promise.
Part of fulfilling that promise involves physical upkeep, which brings us to grooming. Grooming is the active care of a pet's fur, skin, and nails.
The brushing and washing.
Right. It's not just making them look pretty, it's preventative health care. Long-haired cats need regular grooming.
The brushing, the de-shedding, the nail clipping,
Yeah.
the hidden time tax.
Exactly. Which leads to our final, highly sought-after term, low maintenance. This is a hyphenated adjective meaning something requires very little effort, time, or money to look after.
Okay.
You might say, some people think cats are more low maintenance than dogs.
Okay, I want to playfully challenge myself here to see if I truly grasp the nuances of this vocabulary. I'm going to combine these terms into one thought based on our deep dive. Tell me if this accurately diagnoses the paradox we talked about earlier.
Let's hear it.
So, a traditional cat person is looking for a low-maintenance companion with an independent temperament. But if they adopt a highly affectionate ragdoll without doing their research, they're accidentally making a massive commitment to daily grooming and emotional support.
That is an absolutely flawless synthesis.
Yes.
You captured the exact trap that uninformed adopters fall into using the precise linguistic tools to explain it.
I'm feeling incredibly validated right now.
Mm.
But bringing this all back down to earth, what does this mean for you, the person listening to this right now? We've traced the evolutionary history of wolves and wild cats. We've analyzed the psychological traits of introverts and extroverts.
We've marveled at the genetically engineered ragdoll.
And we've mastered the vocabulary to describe it all. But maybe the real answer to our opening question isn't about firmly choosing sides at all. I mean, plenty of families own both cats and dogs and absolutely refuse to pick a favorite.
Because the binary is ultimately a false one. We use it to categorize ourselves, but human needs are rarely that simple.
It really is about connection, right?
Yeah.
Whether you are someone who thrives on the energetic, highly visible loyalty of a golden retriever, or you find peace in the quiet, independent companionship of a rescued alley cat.
Or if you are that extroverted apartment dweller who discovers that a gentle, limp ragdoll quietly completes your life.
Exactly. It's simply about finding the puzzle piece that fits your specific daily reality.
I agree completely. But if we pull back and connect all of this to the bigger picture, it leaves us with something quite profound to chew on. Think about the evolutionary journey we just discussed.
The survival mechanics.
Right. Our pets originally evolved to fit our historical survival needs. Dogs were hardworking, utilitarian partners protecting the camp and aiding the hunt.
And cats were pest control agents, protecting our vital grain supply.
Exactly. The relationship was inherently functional. But today, we are actively seeking out breeds like the ragdoll simply for affection. We have literally bred out survival instincts just to achieve the feeling of an animal melting in our arms.
We engineered them purely for comfort.
Yes. What does that massive shift from breeding animals for survival utility to breeding them for pure, unadulterated emotional comfort tell us about what modern humans are most desperately craving today?
Wow.
It's a lot to think about.
That is an incredible thought to leave on. I mean, if we don't need them to hunt for us anymore, but we need them to cuddle us more than ever, what does that say about modern loneliness? Are we, like, genetically engineering the connection we are missing from the rest of society?
That is a profound question.
We started this deep dive by asking if the cat versus dog question is secretly a mirror reflecting our own personalities.
And maybe the answer is yes.
Yeah, but maybe the mirror isn't just showing us who we are, it's showing us what we need the most right now.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. I highly encourage you listening to go give your favorite companion, whether feline, canine, or otherwise, a little extra appreciation today. Until next time.